So, no, my Haere mai, welcome to Digital Marae.
Hello.
Lots of friendly faces, thank you for being here. And this marae, any marae, it is the stories that are told and the people that come to warm it, that make it resonant and bring it to life. So here you are with all your different backgrounds and your different cultural stories and all the myths, and we welcome you. My auntie welcomes you, I welcome you, welcome here today. I suppose to give everybody here kind of context, I've been working with ideas and concepts drawn from my culture. Actually, I'm a mongrel, I'm a bits in, I'm bits of this and bits of that. A bit Jewish, a bit Irish, a bit Welsh. But lots of Marae because I was brought up in New Zealand, so it is the stories of that land that really excite me to do the work that I do. My artwork is actually a byproduct of meeting people, the stories that people share with me, and the resonance that kind of gets left behind, the dreams that I dream when I go to bed, and something kind of filters up into my consciousness, and a strange connection is made from here to there, and some other space happens in between. So art is a byproduct of people. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. A marae is a space where people gather. It's a traditional space. It's an idea that filters all the way through the Pacific. Originally it could be a stone placed on the ground. That stone will be imbued with a sense of spirit and mana, and it is across that space that we speak to each other. We see each other's faces, we smell each other's smells, we share, we try and understand if we come as friends or foe. We tell stories of our grandparents and our grandparents' grandparents. In a post-colonial sense, Maori people started to look at having to build structures, because it was the structures that the new visitors to our land could understand. This is our land here, there's a building on it. This is where we are. In my work, I have a whakatauki, or a proverb that really inspires the work that I do. And that is, travelling in the company of those you love is home in motion. I carry that with me everywhere, and I'm really happy to say travelling with me is my family, my sister, my brother-in-law, my partner, and my images. They can fly as well. You just pack them up in a box, buy them a ticket, and take them with you. It's like my grandmother with me as well. So travelling in the company of those you love is home in motion. In my work, I mean, I'm a child of the, well, I was born in the 60s, but I'm a child of the 70s, very inspired by modular furniture. I like the idea of modular furniture. So I've actually been working towards creating a marae. This is one component of quite a number of pieces that I've worked on over time. Eventually I'm going to put them all together, and then people are really going to go, wow, that's fantastic. There's pieces that's designed to sit in between these works. There's a gateway from which I can karo or invite people into my space. There's stories that I've been gathering onto 16mm film or onto video. There's songs that people share with me. I've been collecting those. The last show I had before now was called Pancake, and I've been making quilts, something so people can keep warm and they can sleep in here, spend time in here. So this is my marae. This is digital marae. Perhaps for some of you, you'll look at these images and you will see photographs. these aren't photographs. What you're looking at is a way for me as a woman to be able to be a carver. I was brought up with this idea that Marae women don't carve. When I say carving, I mean physically carving wood. Inside the Marae, inside the meeting house, it's highly decorated. And alongside these pō whenua, inside the meeting house, we have a series of different ancestral figures. So although these look like photographs, I don't see them as photographs, I see these as ancestral figures. These represent stories, different tribal stories, different Marae stories that we've grown up with. As Marae people, we walk through this land. It's a really nice different sense of time. The past is in front of us and the future is behind us. It's a great way to walk this earth because it means you're always protected. In front of me stands my ancestors, my DNA, where I come from, my father's father's father, my mother's mother's mother. They're in front of me and they protect me here. I go out ahead. The future is behind me. They're the children that come afterwards. So when you walk inside a meeting house and you look to the back of the house, it's actually the past, it's the darkness. And it moves forward, so it's lighter towards the front. So within this exhibition, the darkest part of the house is in the back. It's represented by Mahuika, who was modelled by my father's elder sister. And so you walk into this house, there's a video here, probably there'll be light, and the things light out. So it's kind of more contemporary. It's more now in the future. This work is the most important work in the house for me. Mahuika is really important to me because she's modelled by a family member. Mahuika is a really important work to me because she's the anchor stone. Mahuika is really important to me because she's the eldest woman in this house. Mahuika is really important to me because as a very humble and quiet and shy woman, my auntie gave me a moment to show her strength and her pride. She allowed me to capture a moment and show it to the world, even though she didn't really understand what was happening when we were taking this photograph. When you get a chance, there's some signage at the back of this wall and it has a list of people who worked with me. And that to me is really important too, as that a collective of people worked on these images, a group of people believed in a vision or a dream that I had, and they gave me their time and their creativity and their laughter, their warmth, and they helped me create this work. So as a person who's done a lot of filmmaking, it's really important for me to credit everybody who worked on this work. This is the second time digital Marae has been shown. It's sort of quite uncanny and spooky for me because it was almost a year ago to the day that it first put out there. And the whole 9/11 thing was really interesting. I was sort of fighting towards the end to get these works up and ready on time. And then when that terrible thing, the tragedy that happened in America, it sort of really put everything back into perspective again about, how people really are the most important thing, the greatest gift that we have. So give my spirit, and it's like, fuck art, let's dance, or, what is it really, how do you make it resonant, how does it work? So it really needs to be people and their content. Mahaweka comes from the Maui cycles, and they're stories that we get told as children, and they're stories that talk about natural phenomena, and they're a way of explaining how things are in the world. A lot of these stories that I've depicted in this room quite scary actually, because they're all female figures here. And all these women have been double-crossed by men, and that's why they end up there in this room. I suppose really good mythology always has naughty things they happen. And as women, like depicting women was really important for me. I come from a family of all girls, and I suppose that opportunity to kind of cross boundaries. The first house or the first ancestral figures that I made had to be female figures, because they were the ones that I could understand and visualise the easiest. As I said before, I work in a modular fashion. The next series of works I'll do add to these images you see here, and I'll start working with some male figures as well. But it was really nice to work with female figures first. I'll tell you the story of Mahaweka. She is the grandmother of Maui, and Maui was really naughty. He was a really tricky person. He was I suppose you'd call a shaman. He had this ability to be in human form or also in bird form. But he got sent down to the underworld to go and see Mahaweka to get some fire so that he could heat the food for his people, for his family. So he went down and called out and found Mahaweka, and she beckons him, come here, I can smell that you are from the west side. I think he comes from the west side. And fire is in her fingernails. So this moment captured here is just before she plucks a fingernail and gives it to him, for him to take back to his family so he can start fires to cook the food. But as he's walking back out of the underworld, he chucks it in the river, and then goes back to Mahaweka again and says, oh, I've lost that fingernail, I need another. So she pulls another fingernail from her finger and hands it to him. It's a great gift. He's asking the audience around that. Again, he's walking out from the underworld and throws the fingernail into the water. Now this happens 9 times. She is not happy. She is furious. So she pulls out the fingernail from her little finger and throws it into the bush. And the whole bush comes to fire. There's this huge fire, and now Maui is actually fighting for his life. He turns into a bird and tries to fly and get away from these flames. And he manages to escape. And what's left as a gift to us in Aotearoa in New Zealand is that there's one tree called the mahoi tree, and if you rub that tree together at high friction, you can always get the spark of fire. And that's the gift that she gave to us. There's another angle, mythology I find really interesting, because there's kind of levels of storytelling that talk about, the natural world, and then there's kind of more psychological aspects to it. And one of those is that in her giving away her ability to create fire in the world, she loses her mana. Her hierarchy has kind of dropped, and his is increased because he was the one that managed to obtain fire from his group. The other angle to that story is Maui as a figure, as a human figure, represents the ability through his intelligence or the deeds that he has done. He has the ability to rise up and become, a hero figure. So those are a couple of things related to this particular story. I'll talk about Hinepokuhurangi and Hinewai. She's the elder sister and this is the younger sister. Hinepokuhurangi is known as the Mist Maiden. And her story comes from the Tūhoe tribe, which is in central North Island. The Tūhoe tribe are a very proud race of people. They were never colonised, ever. They're really tough and they're really scary. In fact, I'm trying to remember one time I drove down there recently and it's got, what's that saying, James? You drive in and it says, any foe will be shot, any survivors will be eaten. So we can't go into that area, that's pretty spooky and really tough. So they're a very proud race of people and they have lovely mythology related to their landscape. There's an incredible forest called the Urureta forest. It's gorgeous. It's really quite spooky because it's very dark and it rains a lot and there's lots of mist that sits on the hill. So Hinepokuhurangi, she rises up and picks up the mists just on sunrise. There's a particular moment and then all the mist lifts from the bush and from the forest down there. And so she is the children of the mist. They've named herself, the Tūhoe people naming themselves after this ancestral figure. This is her younger sister, Hinewai. And Hinewai, in the story, Hinepokuhurangi married a mortal, a mere man. He was so proud to have such a beautiful wife. But so embarrassed because his family, his tribe of people never got to see her because she could only spend evenings with him. They could come together as husband and wife. She said, never, never, never can you have me during the day. Some months went on, they were married, spent time, and his friends kept saying, oh, you're saying you're married, but actually we've never seen you, you're lying. I'm not so sure about this, I'm not so sure. So he came up with a plan. And his plan was to cover up the window and around the door so no light came in the morning. So he did that all night. The next morning comes along. Hinepokuhurangi sort of wakes up and sort of feels like this is time to leave. He says, no, look, it's still dark out there. Hinepokuhurangi starts to hear her sister calling, Hine, you've got to come back up. She wakes up, she says, no, it's still dark, look, it's still night. A little bit more time goes along, she can hear birds. She can hear the dawn chorus, the sound of birds out in the forest. And she realises he's on a trip there. She comes outside and sees all the tribal village, they've all come together and actually see that this man has a wife. And they see him in Hinepokuhurangi, the one time they ever see her. And she turns to him and says, well, I told you, I'll never be with you during the daytime, so you will never see me again. And she picked up her skirts and ascended off into the heavens. Years later, her husband took on a new name, and his name was Uenuku, and Uenuku is a rainbow. So when there's a particular balance of water and ether and gases in the air, that's him chasing across the sky and trying to catch his wife that he will never ever be able to hold. So that's a story that comes from Tūhoe. I'd just like to point out in this particular hanging of this work, this isn't quite working for me. Ideally, this image should be here and Hinewai should be here. They actually look at each other. They look across each other. There's a particular eye line that was designed to go within this exhibition. And I'm hoping I might be able to change that because she is actually very high. She's designed so that if you're quite low, she looks like she's looking at you. There's a lot of kind of, days of our lives looks going on here. yeah, just ask you to visualise those two in a slightly different configuration, because that's what these two are about. This is a marakihau, and a marakihau is a term only ever used in carving, and it's to describe taniwha, and taniwha are our sort of energised spirits that are related to the water. So in this image we've kind of tried to make it kind of murky, like she's inside a creek, and I'm very happy with this image. It is a really good kind of use of digital intervention to create something that I think is truly traditional. That's what I'm trying to achieve in these works, is a sense of what happens in our carving styles. It's very spooky. I like spooky. Also, I really like this image because back in the 80s there was a band called Song to Song, and they had this club that dubbed classics, and this jar guy with big dreadlocks swinging his hair around, so it really reminds me of that. It's like smoking a big pipe. So. And this image here is Kulangai Tuku, and in fact her story, which was written by Ngāhuia Te Awapotaku, who's speaking here later on this afternoon. I read her rewriting of the story of Hatu Hatu and the Bird Woman, or Hatu Hatu and Turangai Tuku, and I was very inspired by Ngāhuia's writing, because it actually presented the story in a completely different light. Usually the story was told from Hatu Hatu in the male point of view, which was that he was captured by the bird woman and put in a cave as a pet with all her treasured sets of birds. And then one day he sent her off, he tricked her and sent her off to go and find him some food, and he slaughtered all her birds and stole her blood and became a hero when he got home. But in Ngāhuia's story, she took it from Kurangai Tuku's perspective and actually gave her a name, and talked about what a terrible desecration it was of somebody coming into your house and trampling the house and killing the birds and stealing your finery. So that story, in a sense, inspired the making of these works. So I've had lots of stories I've heard over the years, and as an adult person trying to imagine other layers, the psychology of what's going on with these stories. In a sense for me, this image, I like it because in the story, Hatu Hatu was given a charm by his grandmother, and he could go and hide inside rocks. So as she was racing after him and trying to capture him, and she was going to wreak vengeance on him, he would go and hide in the rocks. So because I have a computer, I've actually been able to change the story and actually stretch it open so she can try and find him. So it's like kind of rewriting some of those histories. As an image, it doesn't work for me, which as an artist I find really interesting, because I think this image is going to be the point of movement into the next series of works, and I think that's quite interesting. As an artist, sometimes you do shows and this is like, yeah, that's it, I've nailed it, got that one right, and then you look at another one and it's actually the space by which you go through to another space. So I find this a really interesting and problematic work. And then Let There Be a Light. In the original installation of this work, Let There Be Light, the video sat opposite Mahuia so that she could always have a view to the outside world. In Māori culture, we don't have like times of the day, we talk about directions, sort of that Ngāhuia north, south, east and west. And within that video there's a sense of movement between being up and down, up in the heavens, down below sea level, and scanning left and right. So that video to me is almost a little bit like her security or surveillance system. So Mahuika can always see who's coming into the space and and make sure that it's a safe space. So in my work I attempt to deal with really traditional concepts, and I try and work with traditional ideas and do it in a very respectful but contemporary way. So I suppose the contemporary things that I've done here are to bring a group of women together to be shown in one space at a time. Generally you're going to a marae, you'd be lucky to see 3 or 4 female figures in amongst a lot of ancestral figures. I suppose the other thing that I do that I really loved about this image, and thinking about Mahawika, she's been shown a lot in paintings and stories and illustrations, and because she's in the underworld, she's usually represented as being in the bush, but I wanted her to be very styling and have her own kind of modernistic apartment. So I chose a Marcel Brewer chair for her to be seated on, so that it's talking about imagining her in a really different kind of way. And also because I knew it was going to be in an art gallery, so sort of, you know, we'll have Marcel Brewer chairs. So and I suppose Hanima, she's so gorgeous. Originally, you know, I was going to have these images within the same print, but Buddy, who I was working with, I came on one day, he'd been fiddling with it, he said, look at this, and I was like, it's like a Tretyakov. So there she sits. So it's kind of referencing some other stuff that happens, you know, in the artistic world, but they're kind of bringing it. So she's also another kind of way of looking at our Marae space as well. I think that's a lot to talk about. But would anyone like to ask any questions?
How do you get the images on the surface?
The images on the surface. How do they appear?
How do you get it?
It's magic. Actually, well, yeah, just to talk about the technical aspects of it. These are all taken from 4 or 5 photographs. So very old, you know, it's a really different type of, it's a really slow photographic technique. You get really huge, you know, the negatives are really large. And actually as you're taking them, it's that whole thing, you sort of put your head upside down, like everything's, all the optics are reversed. So they're a combination of analog and digital processes. I've manipulated them inside the computer, and I just use it as a tool really. So there's kind of lots of different layers to a number of these works in here. But I try and, I like to work outside the computer because I actually prefer people to sitting in front of a monitor all day. It doesn't tell me jokes as much as I would like it to. And yeah, there's no dust inside computers either, and there's no sort of like pores and stuff. So I kind of like using a combination of things. And as a filmmaker, I really like working with people. You know, so it meant that I could work with a costumer and a makeup artist, and you know, have lots of discussions, lines, you know, food, and talk about these sort of images that we wanted to create. And yeah, these are mounted on aluminium, just nice, slick kind of surface. I didn't want them to be slick in an editorial sense, just because I like to be on, and they do have that kind of aspect to them. What I wanted to do was, our master carvers bring an incredible detail and surface texture to the wood when they're carving. So I wanted to work my surface, because I couldn't use wood or I couldn't use carving tools. I really wanted to make it as beautiful and as worked on the surface, but using photography.
I guess what I want to know is this image of film, which is stuck to the aluminium, or is the pigment directly attached to the aluminium?
It's gloss photography stuck to aluminium, yeah, pressed, yeah.
And And Lisa, your videos over the last 10 years or so have been extremely varied in their approaches. Could you just talk a little bit about a Marae Dragon story and also Let There Be Light?
Okay. Well, Let There Be Light was kind of trying to make something out of nothing, really, in the sense that we, when we were doing the photographic shoot, my partner James was sort of doing a little bit of filming, and I sort of felt like there was just something to kind of bring a little bit more about the idea of there's stories going on. I mean, it's really hard. I was trying to represent a whole story with one image, and it's a very difficult thing to kind of pull off. I suppose that people look at them and have the sense that there's more of a story. But Let There Be Light, the most important thing to me about that was actually the transmission of light, but also the soundtrack that goes with it. James and I spent a long time talking about the psychological aspects of sound, and he was talking about the minor keys or the black keys on the piano and the resolving chords and how they make, they lift you up and they bring you into another kind of realm. So, the Let There Be Light kind of functions on making people feel like they are in a sort of a strange space. It also functions in the sense that in the past, that like a Marae Dragon story, for instance, uses traditional Marae instrumentation, and so there was an opportunity here to contemporise the idea of the Marae. So I really wanted to use flutes and really different types of sounds, so it was confounding what people would expect. A Marae Dragon story, it's a 15-minute film, and I built little three-dimensional puppets and made a story about Taniwha, like this is a Taniwha figure here. For our Marae up north, or the far north where I come from, there's two female Taniwhas attached up there as well, and they're related to the South Island, but they're also related to my family up north. So a Marae Dragon story was actually, I'd just seen a Chinese ghost story. I was trying to come up with a name for this film, and I loved a Chinese ghost story because it was also, that Asian sort of mythology and fantasy figures. So in that, I used a lot of traditional Marae instrumentation. I was really lucky to work with Milton Hohaya, he's been involved with the regeneration and the making of those kind of instruments. I should say, when New Zealand was colonised, they brought, the government of the time brought all these terrible decrees, and one of them, they called it the Tohunga Act. That's correct, isn't it?
Suppression of Tohunga.
Suppression of Tohunga. Tohunga were the people who carried and hold and all our special information about culture and practices and magic and all those kind of things. So it was really hard because one of the things that they had the Suppression Act, and that meant that there's a lot of Marae instruments. Nobody knew how they sounded. There was the ability to record photographs at the turn of the century, but there was no kind of sound recordings of what our musical instrumentation is like. So there's been a number of people who've tried to be reviving those kind of sounds. So, if you get the opportunity, if you have the time, do go and look at a Marae Dragon story, if at least just to hear the soundtrack, because it's got kuhoro, which is a really interesting instrument. It's a trumpet, and there's two ways of playing it. There's a female and a male way of playing it. It's got holes in different parts of the body of the work, so we, there's you get different types of sounds, and I've got really short attention deficit or whatever, so that's why I do lots of different things. I'm a teacher, so sometimes I don't have the energy to be working on media stuff all the time, so I make things. And I just try to explore different mediums and working with them in different ways. So I don't know if it's a good strategy or not. Some people have found it really difficult because in my practice I move around, I don't stay in any one place, but I think it's probably quite a good strategy in the long run, because now that I'm starting to get a really much larger body of work, like some of those fluffy fluffy, silly things that I make, you know, you start to see that they are the props, and you know, they're all starting to kind of feed in. I've got a big kind of practice in my head. Like when I get all these pieces together, it's going to be wicked. It's really cool. So, you know, I hope to invite you back in. There's some male figures.
Yes, can I ask you a question about, you know how you mentioned the future and the past, and the past being in front of the future and the behind. How she's behind you when she was past? Like, you know that relationship that you have, being into the door,
Sure.
the door's there, she's still behind. You know that front and back.
Yeah. It's quite tricky because, you know, normally the door would be there,
Yeah.
so then you would be looking, and then your past is
So
still.
she's you in the front, right?
Because when you walk into the building, that's the first thing you see. So yeah, there's a lot of it's really detailed, like this kind of structure to do with directions.
Yeah, once you can photo installations.
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky because they gave me a discrete room, so you do sort of see it as a room. But normally, the door would be there and the video would be over there too, and that would be where the light comes into the building. So that would be the sort of more towards the youthfulness and then coming back to the tradition.
So you would see her first though, with the door.
Yeah.
I was just trying to keep her.
It's a kind of a little compromise because of, you know, yeah.
It's I get this feeling when you're talking about the photographs that it's like architecture.
It is architecture.
Yes, I mean, you talk about the house with the axis and that the photographs then become the structure of that house. Although I mean, they have the images on them, but they also
That holding up the roof. Usually, I've been making a lot of artworks that touch the ground and go up into space, so it's sort of, you know, that space in between is really important because that's between Earth and the heavens. And when you're talking about going to Whanenui, which is the meeting house, it's actually related to a body. So there's always a kululu or a face on the front of the house, and then the arms are like this, and they welcome you in. And then you go through the door and into the body of the house. So these are the ancestors that would be on the side of the house, and then up above there's the whaitai or hiki, and they are like ribs, the rib bones. So you actually are physically inside a body, so it's represented as a body.
And I love the way that you speak so confidently about the stories, that they're yours.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Well, they are stories. I mean, and you know, I look at this and in this workshop that I'm doing next week, I'm wanting to invite people to give me their stories, and that's that makes them alive. Yeah, you need a community because without a community, it's just a structure, or it's just a building. It's not a house. It's not a home. Yeah.
And I presume you have to send the photos out to get printed to that size.
Yes. Yep. Oh, there's lots of technical aspects to making work like this. But it's really important for me to know and you not to worry about. in the sense that when you come in here, I want you to enjoy the magic. You know, and it's quite interesting because I'll generally find it's the other photographers like, how did you do that? How did you make this? And that's kind of the technical stuff that we talk about. But I don't need to be rude. I mean that. And I want people to enjoy the fantasy. I want children to come in here and then when they hear other stories, like really, you know, believe in that magic. Because magic is so important. And the dreams are so important. And I think it's up to us to help our children manifest their dreams. I mean, I have that ability to visualise pictures in my head and then take it through to a point where I can show other people what I've been thinking about. Yeah, so these are just pictures that I've dreamed. You know, I get a lot of my artworks are in my dreams, so my dream time is really important. sometimes I wake up, I'm absolutely tired because I've been dreaming all night thinking up all these new ideas. And but yeah, it's easy to think of them, but it's also actually trying to get them on the walls takes a long time. So I really hope children are really inspired. That's the most important thing.
I wondered if you had a time frame in mind for yourself when all of this stuff comes together. And when it comes together, will it just be images around the wall, or will it be some of these the objects that you're seeking for?
Okay, it's virtual Marae 2020. And I see it as a physical space, but I also see it as working through the web, so that it's a space that people can come and gift a song or a story to, so that there will be some kind of interface where people can come and meet and then hear other people's stories. Yeah, that's time. So I've got 18 years. Oh, well, I mean, I'll just keep adding to it. There's lots of different things. And, you know, I mean, that's what, I like that idea of the web, because I was, you know, when I said right at the beginning, travelling in the company of those you love is home in motion, the ability to move and have ideas move around is really, to share, I think that's kind of where I really want to get to.
So it's not so much the idea of having a final thing at a certain time, it's just that there's something that you're working towards.
Yeah. And also, I think the nice thing is too, that over that time frame, because I'll be getting older and my friends who are in these routes will be getting older, that the technology will change, so you'll have a track of time. I suppose like Namjoon Paik in a way, you look at his work and you say, oh wow, there's a TV set of the 70s, and then he's going to use this here and that there, and that you get a track of time and people.